Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our Candidates Night. My name is Roy Froome, President of San Martin Neighborhood Alliance. This forum is sponsored by the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance and the League of Women Voters for San Jose, Santa Clara. I want to remind everyone that we have information on the Alliance and on the League of Women Voters in the back of the hall, and I encourage everyone to visit those areas, and especially if you're a South County resident, if you're not already a member of the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance, this will be an excellent opportunity to get an application and become a member, because together we can make a difference. I also would like to remind everyone that we have restrooms in the back of the hall, and there are refreshments. There are cookies, coffee, and hot tea in the back of the hall. And now, before we introduce our candidates, if you would please all rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance to the greatest nation on earth. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight from the League of Women Voters, Alice Thorne. Alice?
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. I've done quite a number of these forums, and I must say this has been the most carefully planned forum I've ever been associated with. Sylvia Hamilton and all the people that we've worked with have been just marvelous. I wanted to say a word about the League of Women Voters. Most of you may be familiar with it, but we're an organization that grew out of the women's suffrage movement. We were formed to help women learn how to use that newly gained vote quite a long time ago now. And we continue in that mission by trying to provide information that will help voters cast those votes intelligently. And tonight's forum is part of that work that we do, trying to give information to voters so that they'll be able to walk into the voting booth and vote with intelligence. Neither the San Martin Neighborhood Association nor the League of Women Voters opposes or supports candidates. We are both completely nonpartisan. And so tonight's forum is an attempt to just present information. We are not trying to give support or opposition in any way. Our focus is on the issues that are of interest to you in your community. And as you all have know, the candidates tonight are Don Gage and Dennis Kennedy, and they are running for office for Supervisorial District 1 in Santa Clara County. And one of the things I learned in preparing for this is that they are really the only elected representatives who directly affect life for people in San Martin. And I had not known that, and it was a fact that was of great interest to me. So here's how the evening will go. Each candidate is prepared to give you a 3-minute opening statement. We did a little bit of drawing out of the hat at the beginning of earlier in the evening, I should say. And Don Gage will present the first statement, and he will be followed by Dennis Kennedy. After they have presented those formal statements, we will begin the process of asking questions. And I have some prepared questions up here which were worked on by the Neighborhood Association and by the League of Women Voters. And I will give those questions first. And while I'm doing that, from the looks of the table, the written questions have already started coming in. So all of you are invited to submit written questions. There are runners with cards and pencils, and you just need to raise your hand if you haven't got access to one. You may turn those questions in to runners, and they will be brought over here to the table where the sorters will be working on them. Please understand that if there are questions where there are questions that are alike, we'll try to merge them so that the issue gets covered. And remember that we're interested in issues that are affecting this neighborhood, this community, I should say, excuse me. We're asking that you please be brief. Please have mercy on me and be brief. Try to keep one topic per card. Please do not ask personal questions. We will not ask them. Please be sure that the questions will be directed to each candidate so that both candidates can answer the questions. And as I said, we'll try to sort them so that we cover as many issues as possible. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. I'm asking, please, that you have the courtesy to listen to both candidates. Then at the end of the written questions, the candidates will each have 1 minute to clarify anything that has been said during the question and answer period that they wanted to have a last word on, and then we will have closing statements from each candidate. So that's kind of the shape of how we are going to do this evening. So I think then that we will be ready to start, and Don Gage, since you won the toss, if you will begin with your 3-minute statement. Is this one working? Okay, come up to the podium.
I might need that chair before this night's over. I'll start now. I ran for supervisor because I felt that South County was not receiving its fair share of services. And I committed at that time to be accessible and work hard for you. And I've done that and more. And I'm especially proud of a few initiatives. We have the nation's first program to provide health insurance for kids. We also have created partnerships between law enforcement and schools, including successful community justice projects. I am proud of Measure B county transportation projects such as the 101 expansion, which is ahead of schedule and under budget. I'm also proud to say that I've been able to triple the number of sheriff's deputies in South County. Started the Housing Trust, and we've raised over $20 million for housing in the Valley. We set aside $5 million to improve public safety to ensure that our county is prepared in the event of terrorist acts if they occur. And I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish with the financial part of our business. When I took office 4 years ago, the county had $9 million in reserves. Currently, we have $96 million in reserves, which has been used to get the best credit rating in the state of California, and it saves taxpayers millions when we go out and bond. And we've accomplished this without raising taxes one bit. And these savings have allowed us to provide services for South County, including hiring a graffiti abatement coordinator who is focused on San Martin, and we've had 4 paintouts here. We put extra $2.5 million into the roads budget for road improvements, funded a large animal rescue group for South County, revised the county's animal ordinance to make it work for South County, gave $30,000 to the Farm Bureau to help local farmers in the area, repaired roads and potholes that were damaged by flooding, and expanded services to South County. Did selective traffic enforcement by working with the CHP and the sheriff, added an additional zoning enforcement officer, added an animal control program manager and livestock advisor. I've also taken steps to increase accessibility to government and South County residents. Gave $10,000 to the San Martin Advisory Planning Commission to be able to communicate to the residents in San Martin. And I opened my office in San Martin. I also appointed Richard Palmisano, a San Martin resident, to the County Planning Commission and expanded the courts in Morgan Hill, planned for increased park access to residents in San Martin, established a Fishability Day for kids, and I've strived to be accessible to residents. It was rare if an elected official attended local planning meetings, but I was there. I'm always available with a published pager number, and these are just some of the commitments that I've made and kept. I consider myself a public servant and really enjoy working for you, and if you call or write or email me, you'll get a response. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the San Martin Community Alliance for hosting the event today. I'm very pleased that they've put in the effort to organize an event like this to really demonstrate their commitment to the democratic process. I'll also like to thank the League of Women Voters for helping to organize this. They always do a wonderful job. I'd like to take a minute to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. I've been the mayor of Morgan Hill. This is now my 4th term as mayor. They're 2-year terms. And I've lived in Santa Clara County for about 50 years, 24 of that in San Jose and 26 years here in South Santa Clara County. I've served on various capacities prior to being on the City Council, which I started in 1990. I was on the Planning Commission. I served as a citizens representative on the South County Regional Wastewater Authority Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm past chairman of SCRAW, the South County Regional Wastewater Authority. I'm the past president of the Santa Clara County Cities Association, and I just recently completed my 2nd term on the board of directors of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, most recently serving as chairman of the Transit Planning and Operations Committee. My background, other than my responsibilities as mayor, I've worked for IBM for many years and as manager and engineer, and then after that for Parsons Transportation as a project manager and engineer. So I have, the point of all that is that I've got a lot of experience in Santa Clara County, not just in South County, but throughout the region. And I would bring that experience to the Board of Supervisors. It is urgent that San Martin and South County have a representative that will truly represent their interests. It's not enough to listen, to only listen, but actions need to be taken. San Martin has become a dumping ground for many projects that other communities do not want, junkyards, storage facilities, etc. I believe that the San Martin residents deserve better than that. There's a lot more that can be done. There are major issues that I'll be talking about in this campaign, issues such as traffic and congestion relief, affordable housing, access to medical care, issues of protecting our agricultural resources, our hillsides, our environment. That's an area of strength that I have. Smart growth. Morgan Hill has done an excellent job of planning properly, and we'll talk more about that later. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we ask that we not have applause from this point forward? We want to try to get a lot of questions in tonight, and the applause will slow us down. So if you could just hold it until the very end of the evening, that would be helpful to us. I'm also asked to tell you that there are translation services available for Spanish and for the hearing impaired, if anyone has need of those services. And Mary, are you the point person back over there, if there's anyone who would like either of those services? Okay, then we'll start with asking the questions. The candidates are going to each have 2 minutes to answer questions. I have prepared questions here, as I say, that were prepared by the League and the San Martin Neighborhood Association. And then we will be taking the written questions from the community. So we'll start with the prepared questions. And Don Gage, I'll ask you first on this section.
Check this. Okay.
They're both working now. We have all 3 mics working. Thank you very much. Okay, question 1. The Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors has hired a consulting team to provide an airport master plan update and business plan study. What is your position on this plan and the rationale for the future of South County Airport? Don?
My position is that I will be the chairperson leading the master plan study for all 3 airports, South County, Reed Hillview, and Palo Alto. The purpose of the study is really to answer the question that you've asked. First, to gather data to determine, is are the airplanes viable? Are we getting increases at the airports? How do we want to handle security? How do we want to do all these things? Are we providing the right services, et cetera, et cetera? So we will be going through about an 18-month process, meeting on a monthly basis at all 3 airports, and in some cases there'll be people in the same attending these same meetings to make those determinations. Once the master plan is done, then we will present the report to the community, and at that point in time the board will decide after public meetings on how they're going to deal with the airport, whether they expand, whether they don't expand, whether they get moved or whatever.
Mr. Kennedy.
Okay. The study, whoops. Let me make sure I can hear. Okay. I did attend, I think it was the first meeting that was held right here in the at the Lions Club. And I need to mention that I do have my private pilot's license. I learned how to fly right here at South County Airport. I believe that it is important that we keep the general aviation airports that we have in Santa Clara County open. I know that a lot of air traffic has been shifted to San Martin South County Airport because there was a period of time which Reed Hillview was closed, San Jose was closed to general aviation. I think it's important that, very important that we keep our other airports open for general aviation traffic so that South County Airport here in San Martin is not overloaded. I think the study will serve a very important need, and it needs to be done. Above all, it needs to have the participation of the San Martin residents because it's in your backyard. And I will listen to your concerns and make sure that the interest of the San Martin residents are included in whatever plan the consultants come up with. So it's very important that you have input into that process, and that you're not only enough just to listen, but that we act on the input of you as residents of this community.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to alternate who gets to start on each question. So, Mr. Kennedy, you'll be taking. Sorry? No, there's a 1-minute response at the end of all the questions, just a mop-up question, a mop-up response. All right, this second question then, Mr. Kennedy, you'll be doing the first answering. The San Martin Planning Advisory Committee is the only officially recognized voice San Martin has in local land use issues. But the committee is advisory only and lacks any binding authority. How would you ensure that the San Martin Planning Advisory Committee and all residents of San Martin are truly part of the decision-making process?
You know, I think we have a question of enforcement. It's really the supervisor's responsibility to enforce the decisions that are made by the San Martin Planning Advisory Committee. I have with me a copy of the San Martin Integrated Design Plan and the South County Joint Planning Program. I'm proud that I was on the committee that helped write that program for Santa Clara County in the late 80s. I believe that plan is not being followed, and that the committee, the San Martin Planning Committee's recommendations are not being followed. I think it's really up to the supervisor, who has responsibility for this jurisdiction, to enforce what this committee comes up with. Unfortunately, I believe that is not being done. So I would enforce what the planning committee comes up with. You know, I don't know if it's necessary to change the rules of the ordinance to make it mandatory. I think it's simply a matter of the supervisor representing this district to enforce and to support the decisions of the planning committee.
Mr. Gage.
Thank you. First, I want to say that the San Martin Planning Advisory Committee is actually the only one in the county other than the Santa Clara County Planning Commission. And there's a reason that it's advisory, because the people are appointed to that commission and they are not elected, and that's why the buck stops at the Board of Supervisors. We take recommendations from the planners. They go from there to the County Planning Commission, where they're reviewed, the technical review of it, and then if whoever is asking to do something is not satisfied with that, it can be appealed to the Board of Supervisors. And there's a reason for that, because those folks, even on our local planning, our Santa Clara County Planning Commission, are not elected officials, so they are not directly responsible to the people. We have a set of guidelines that they follow. Our planning department reviews everything that's done in the area to make sure that we follow those guidelines, that any project that is put in there meets all the conditions, and then that's passed on to the Planning Commission. So in many cases, it may be that the residents feel that, gee, you're not listening to me, but we also have to follow the law. We can't not, if a person meets all the criteria, just say we don't want you here. So I can tell you, I do attend the San Martin Planning Commission meetings, and we have a lot of dialogue, and in the past, they have changed projects, and in the past, they have actually added conditions onto the projects, which in essence most other people don't have to do, but do that because we're very sensitive to the residents of the community, and I think it's important that they have that voice, but you also have to understand that they are in advisory position, as all our 33 commissions that report to the County Board of Supervisors.
Okay, on to another topic. The industrial and commercial zoning regulations in San Martin closely follow regulations found in urban, populated cities like San Jose. Do you believe those regulations maintain and enhance the rural atmosphere? And if not, how would you change them? Mr. Gage.
To start with, those regulations were put in 1982, which defined the boundaries for commercial and industrial areas in San Martin. They were revised 3 or 4 times based on general plan amendments. And finally, in 1997, the boundaries were set to incorporate some lines that were splitting properties in half. As a result of all that, we also went further in 1999 and put in some extra conditions on that to try to enhance what the community wanted in the San Martin area, which actually made it more restrictive. So I think that those conditions at this point in time are adequate, and if we need to change them, we certainly will look at that. But we can't do a general plan change. I mean, it costs thousands and thousands of dollars. The cities do them, every 20 years because of the expense, and update them. So we're open to decision, but in the last few years, we have in fact made more restrictions on anything that's being developed in this area than in most other areas.
Mr. Kennedy.
Those of us who live in South County really love the rural nature of our communities. We like the agricultural spaces, the open space, our hillsides, our natural resources, and we really value those. I would change the industrial standards for San Martin to more reflect what the residents want, to more reflect the rural character of San Martin. As I said earlier, San Martin has become a dumping ground for a lot of projects that other communities don't want, and that should not be the case. So I would change it.
Okay, this question may kind of follow along on both your answers. San Martin has had difficulty attracting desirable commercial businesses that serve this local community and improving the overall aesthetic appearance of the village core. What would you do to attract desirable commercial businesses while improving the aesthetic appearance and preserving the rural atmosphere of San Martin? Mr. Kennedy, do you want to take that one?
Well, that's an issue that all urban cities are faced with, because commercial businesses bring in a sales tax revenue which has become the primary source of revenue for most urban communities. And we've had some success in Morgan Hill. Gilroy has had some success. I think it would start with forming a committee, or using the committee that's already here, perhaps the Alliance. You need an advocacy group. Could be like a Chamber of Commerce in a larger city that really goes out and goes after those commercial businesses that you want to have in your community. So if the San Martin Community Alliance or an entity would be put in place here in San Martin, and I could help facilitate that as supervisor, I would be happy to do that. I've done that in Morgan Hill. The city of Morgan Hill has a joint committee with our Chamber of Commerce, and we actively recruit commercial businesses, and I would help facilitate. I use that word because commercial businesses, government can't really tell them what to do, but we can facilitate. We can remove the restraints and help local interest groups accomplish what they would like to see. So that's what I would do.
Thank you. I think that the real problem that we have here is that there is no sewer capacity for San Martin. Unlike a city, you can attract a lot of industry, a lot of commercial, because you have sewer capacity to allow the businesses that have high volumes to build there. San Martin is not like that. We're in an area where you have to be on septic tanks, and so they're really limited in what they do. One of the things that could occur with San Martin is for the county to purchase some sewer capacity when they expand the plant in Gilroy. That's a joint plant between Morgan Hill and Gilroy, to allow some businesses that would really enhance the community to come here. But then again, you run into the problem is, do you want that development growth or not? And keeping in mind that that tax base for San Martin goes to the county because they are not a city that's incorporated. So I think that there has to be a lot of discussion in the community as to what it is you really want to have happen in San Martin. But you're not going to see major businesses locate down here that are going to require sewer capacity because it's not available to them.
Okay, this question takes us back to the airport again. There is not a control tower or official rules for the South County Airport, only a good neighbor policy suggesting flight patterns and curfews. Local pilots seem to honor the policy while others do not. Considering the events of September 11th, what will you do to ensure the safety of San Martin residents as it relates to this airport? Mr. Gage.
Thank you. Part of the issues that will be discussed during the master planning process of the airports is just what you discussed. San Martin Airport is a small enough airport that there isn't a lot of traffic to warrant a full-time tower. And in fact, at night, when airplanes land, it's radio controlled. They turn on the lights to the runway, et cetera, et cetera. As that airport begins to develop and we start having more planes coming in and out, there'll be revenue generated in order for us to add those amenities. Right now, it makes it very difficult. It's not like Reed Hillview or San Jose International, simply because there isn't the volume here.
Mr. Kennedy.
I understand that there are many pilots who do land very late at night, and I think that should not be allowed. I think we need to have some controls and enforce those. The FAA has some very strong powers, and they can remove a pilot's license if he or she violates a particular ordinance or regulation. So there are strong mechanisms in place that can be used. And I think it's a matter of, first of all, establishing what limits we want, make sure, and we do have some of those established now. If those are not, we need to first of all find out if they're being enforced adequately, and perhaps the problem is a lack of enforcement. If that's the case, then we need to toughen up the enforcement. If it's a lack of adequate regulation, then we need to put in some regulations that control it better, more consistent with what the San Martin community would like.
Okay. All right. A question again on development. When public facilities, including but not limited to bus stops, train stations, and parking lots, are being developed and constructed, how will you ensure adherence to county guidelines and policies relating to San Martin? Mr. Kennedy, you can start on that one.
So it's a question of enforcement, and I think often and many times issues or violations of our county ordinances are enforced as a result of citizen complaints. They're code enforcement personnel that work for the county, and what we need to do to ensure that public facilities within the San Martin area, that our code enforcement people are checking these facilities on a regular basis, and if any code violations are found, that they need to be rigidly enforced and corrected. So I think it's a matter, if there are violations, if it's not adequately being enforced today, we need to step up our code enforcement to ensure that we do not allow violations to occur.
Public as well as private industry falls under the same scrutiny. A public facility can't be built without having or passing through local ordinances, county ordinances, et cetera, et cetera. That's one of the reasons that we hired an extra code enforcement person down here, because we didn't have enough people to go around, and a lot of the development was occurring in this area. They do normal inspections. They have to be signed off on, and if they don't meet those requirements, the construction is stopped, and it's a matter of doing their jobs. And I think that they do a good job in that when they're processing those data. So it's there, and it gets enforced.
Okay, thank you. This ends the part of the questions that have been pre-prepared, and we're just about to start on the questions that are coming now from the audience. I wanted to let you know that this forum tonight is being taped, and that it will be available for broadcast on the Morgan Hill Access Television, Cable 19 in Morgan Hill and San Martin. And it will be broadcast on January 23rd at 7 p.m., also on Sunday, January 27th at 3 p.m., and there will perhaps be other times also. You can see the schedule in the Morgan Hill Times. It will be broadcast in its entirety with no editing, as we have agreed with the candidates. Okay, we can start in on some of the questions that have come in. I am deeply concerned about the elimination of reproductive services for women in Morgan Hill and Gilroy in terms of contraception and surgical options in the hospitals. What have you done or would you do to rectify this situation? Now I knew I'd get lost. Did you answer the last one?
I'm old, I don't remember, but I'll go first.
Let's just go ahead and start. We'll alternate again. Sorry.
I believe that statement is correct. The hospital that we currently have operating is a Catholic hospital, and they do have restrictions. One of the things that we're doing from the Valley Medical Center, which does offer those services, is that we are currently planning, we've already given the approval to go out and do a satellite facility in Gilroy where some of those services can be provided. And any time that we can help get some of these services available to the local people, we'll do that. The hospital, because it is a Catholic hospital, follows certain guidelines, and that is their prerogative, as any business has. But, I think that we can find ways to get around that. One of them is to open some clinics, which we are doing. We have the clinic at San Martin, and we're going to be hopefully opening one in Gilroy.
Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I'm very concerned about the loss of women's reproductive health services in South County. I think there were some decisions that had been made by the Board of Supervisors to provide tax-exempt bonds to support the the Catholic Healthcare West operations. I think some strings should have been attached that would have mandated that women's reproductive health services remain in place or allowed to continue in South County. I know that it's if a woman after birth needed to have a tubal ligation, currently that could not be done at St. Louis Regional Hospital. In Morgan Hill, I have been very active with the closure of the St. Louis Hospital in Morgan Hill. We formed the Morgan Hill Community Health Foundation. We're working to reestablish medical services in Morgan Hill. I worked with many of our doctors and nurses in the medical community. And part of that process, I would like to include reestablishing women's reproductive health care services in Morgan Hill as well, for all of South County, whether it's in Morgan Hill or at the St. Louis Regional Facility in Gilroy. Either one of those places, we need to have those services in South Santa Clara County. I'm working on that, and I will continue to.
Okay. We're getting back to development again. Morgan Hill and Gilroy have a say regarding San Martin development along their boundaries. What would you do to make sure that San Martin has the same kind of influence regarding development along our northern and southern boundaries? Mr. Kennedy?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there is a document and there is a plan that was jointly put together by the community of San Martin, the cities of Gilroy, cities of Morgan Hill, and Santa Clara County, that addresses planning issues. I really believe, and we also have the South County Joint Planning Advisory Committee, which is not really, it's my understanding that it has not met on a regular basis, and that's the responsibility of the supervisor to ensure that that happens. I think if that group were reinvigorated, which is what I would do, it would address those issues on our mutual boundaries. And it has strong representatives representation from the community of San Martin, and those issues would be addressed. Right now, all we have is a document, and it's up to our supervisors and our county staff to enforce it. It's not adequately being enforced.
Mr. Gage?
That's exactly true. We do have the South County Advisory Planning Commission as well as the San Martin. I am the chairman of the South County, and I do want to tell you that those meetings are canceled because the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy are the ones that provide the input data to that, and they've been canceling them all along. We've been reviewing general plans for both cities. That's basically over, and we do have a meeting scheduled for February. There is a sphere of influence that is along the border of San Martin on both sides of Morgan Hill and Gilroy that cover the San Martin area. But those two planning commissions are the ones that are responsible to go out and make sure that their concerns are heard when any planning gets done. Both those cities, the areas that we're talking about with San Martin are really not within the urban service area, so you're not going to see much growth occurring out there other than roads that might be widened, like Maston Avenue or some of the main entrances into the city, because that's not where the growth is going at this point in time.
Okay, let's turn to a different issue for a minute here. This county is in the middle of a housing crisis, and some cities in this county are contesting or fighting their housing element. What are your plans to increase the production of affordable housing in South County? Mr. Gage.
A couple of things. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I was one of the co-founders of the Housing Trust. We raised in 2 years $20 million, which leveraged over $1 billion for 3 areas: low-income housing, first-time home buyers, and homeless shelters. That's a start. We hired an executive director, and we will continue to do that. The county is also now looking at areas of county land where we can build affordable housing. The first example is the fairgrounds. We're going to build 500 and some units of affordable housing on the fairgrounds there. We have a nonprofit agency that's going to help a private developer do that, and then we will turn that over to the city of San Jose. We are also looking at other areas where we have land. For example, in the Milpitas area next to the jail, we have 57 acres, and we're planning on looking at some housing elements there. I tell you that, but I also want to tell you that the county is not in the development business. So we are dealing with unincorporated area, but where we are attached to urban areas and we have land that's available to do that, we plan on trying to develop housing for that. That element is the responsibility of the cities, and I can tell you, coming from the city of Gilroy, that everybody talks about low-income housing, but when it comes time to build it, it gets stopped in those areas. But that's where the development should occur, is in cities.
Mr. Kennedy?
I'm also a strong supporter of the Housing Trust Fund. Morgan Hill contributed $200,000 to the Housing Trust Fund. We're one of many of the cities that contributed towards that $20 million. That's really a drop in the bucket, though, and when you look at today's housing prices, it's not enough, and the gap is growing between wages and cost of housing. It is a responsibility of our urban communities, our cities, to build the affordable housing. We need to enforce the allocations that are mandated by the state to build the affordable housing. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of pressure put on our cities in South County to build much more housing than other cities to the north, the ones that have the jobs. That's a reality. Nonetheless, we need to build that affordable housing. So, I support that. I serve on Assemblyman Manny Diaz's Assembly Select Committee on Affordable Housing. We've come up with many of the programs to help build affordable housing. Morgan Hill has done some excellent projects. We won a statewide award from the League of California Cities for one of our affordable housing projects. I would support expanding the use of redevelopment agency funds from the current 20% minimum to increase that to 25 or 30% to build more housing. We need to do things to help stimulate and encourage the cities to build more housing, and that's what I would do.
Okay, this one comes out development from a slightly different angle. How would you streamline the planning and development process to avoid huge expenditures by a developer before the discovery that construction could not occur? Mr. Kennedy, do you want to take that one?
Well, I think first of all, by the way, I served on the permit streamlining committee for joint venture Silicon Valley. Having worked in the construction industry, I understand a lot of the issues that developers and builders have to deal with in getting permits approved. I would support methods to continue to streamline and speed up that project. I think it's very important when a developer or a builder brings a project forward that the planning staff, the county planning staff, give that developer a clear indication of whether that project has the ability to be approved or not, and not mislead the developer into thinking that a project would be approved, go through all of the lengthy process, and then ultimately discover that it was not legal or did not meet the requirements. I think it's important that the planning staff tell the developer, the project proponent up front, give them a clear indication of whether that project is buildable and approvable or not.
The county currently has chartered the planning department to go back, and number one, the first thing they have to do is update the ordinances that we have for buildings. Some of those ordinances are 30 and 40 years old and do not meet the current requirements. Secondly, we are revising all the geological maps within the county to coordinate with the state and the federal government, so we know where all the hazards are within the county, so that when somebody wants to build, we know if there's earthquake faults, if there's slippage, if there's wet ground, or whatever we have in those areas. And thirdly, the planning department has established what I call a development review group, where the 12 different agencies meet on each project so that they can look at a project right up front and give the individual who is wanting to develop any information that they might need in order to do their project. This is part of the streamlining process that we're going through right now, and we have assigned staff to do that and hired new staff to do that, and the reports will be available online. We're working on a tracking system so that if you have a project within the county, you can come to the county building, get on a terminal, and you can find out what the status of your project is, so we can continue to move those projects along.
Thank you. Looks to me like planning and development are really major issues in this area. Here's another one. What is your position on open space, green belts, and limited housing development in the foothills and between Morgan Hill and South San Jose? Mr. Gage, I guess you get to keep going here.
I did support the green belt when it came to a vote. I'm very concerned about that, and I'll say this again and again and again. The county is not in the development business. If you have a piece of property that's zoned 20 acres, you can build one house. We don't want to see a lot of development that occurs in there. I noticed that the Morgan Hill is building in the green belt, their school, so you have to follow the rules here. And if you don't want to develop in the green belt, that means everybody. And I support that, because I think we need to have open space, and we need to do better planning when it comes to how we're going to develop all the land we have out there. Also, the other thing that we do to help that is we are doing a habitat plan, wildlife plan, that will identify sensitive areas within the green belt to further protect them. And that is a plan that the county is working on right now with the city of San Jose and several of the other agencies like the Open Space Authority and developers in the area.
Mr. Kennedy?
I've been a strong supporter of protecting our open spaces, our hillsides, our natural resources, our agricultural lands for many, many years. That's a major difference between myself and my opponent. I see development occurring in hillsides. I see it occurring throughout the district, whether it's Los Gatos or Almaden Valley or San Martin or in the unincorporated areas around our communities. Development is occurring where it should not be occurring. I think we need to toughen up our standards to force development to occur within the city's jurisdictions. I'm a strong supporter of the green belt in Coyote Valley, the Coyote Valley Green Belt. That's a part of San Jose's general plan. Unfortunately, the Morgan Hill School District chose to ignore it. We tried to stop them in their effort to build a school there, but they would not change their position, so they proceeded with their plans to build a school in the green belt. They ultimately were not able to do that. So I'm a strong supporter of protecting our open spaces, strong supporter of the Open Space Authority and the expansion of it, acquisition of land, and acquisition of development rights for those purposes.
Okay, this question takes us back to the airport again. We have heard that the closing of Reed Hillview Airport is being discussed. If Reed Hillview were closed, what would you do to modify the South County Airport to compensate? Mr. Kennedy, you get that one.
Well, your question is, if Reed Hillview Airport were closed, I would oppose that. I would do everything I can to not allow it to be closed. I don't believe that South County the South County Airport here in San Martin should be obligated to pick up the additional air traffic that would result from such a closure. There are a tremendous amount of general aviation pilots that use Reed Hillview Airport. That would have a tremendous impact on San Martin Airport. So, first of all, I would do everything I can to prevent that from occurring. And then if that did occur, if Reed Hillview were closed, I would look for locations for other airports, other locations where general aviation could move to.
Mr. Gage.
I want to assure you that Reed Hillview is not going to close. There is no intention on the board to do that. We value all the airports in Santa Clara County because they are an economic development tool that we're going to use. We do need to balance, though, because San Jose International is going to move all of the pilots that are currently lodged there with the expansion of their international airport. Some of the things that we're doing is outside of the master plan that we're starting next week on the airports, is we're going to move forward and build hangars both in South County and at Reed Hillview. Palo Alto's a little different situation because we have a contract with them which doesn't allow us to do that. On top of that, we've reduced the cost for tie downs at South County to try to entice that balance. Everybody has to do their fair share. But Reed Hillview isn't going to close. And, you know, as far as building another airport, you'd have to do it someplace outside of Santa Clara County. Otherwise, there's no space available to do that. If you're going to protect the Greenbelt areas, you know, Moffett Field has been considered, but it wouldn't be, that would not happen in Santa Clara County because there really isn't any more space to do something of that magnitude and handle the current volume of aircraft that are occurring here.
Okay, this question moves us to parks, and the question itself is a little long, but I don't know any way to shorten it, so we'll just give it to you as it is. The Santa Clara Department of Parks and Recreation is presently planning the 4,000-acre Coyote Lake Harvey Bear Ranch County Park. A survey has been funded and completed on the feasibility of a golf course on the park property. The result of the survey was that the site was conducive to the development of a high-quality 27-hole public golf course with excellent market potential. The golf course, as planned, would occupy less than 6% of the park property, would benefit the local high schools and college boys and girls golf teams and the many senior golfers in the area. Would you support this use of the proposed county park? Mr. Gage.
Yes, I would. I believe that we have a lot of wonderful golf courses in our area, Coeur d'Alene, Eagle Ridge, et cetera, but those are not affordable golf courses. The golf course that's being planned for the Bear Ranch will be a municipal golf course, which will allow play there for $35 to $45 a round and not $300 or $400 a round. But I will caution everybody because that is still going through a master plan process and there are public hearings being held. So I would personally support that, but the citizens may not want to do that over there. I think that they will because it's a perfect spot in the flatlands where Bear Ranch comes out to San Martin Avenue, and there's other uses that can coincide with that. But yes, I would support the golf course there. There's a survey that's been done years back that shows there is a need for golf course, but we have too many high-dollar golf courses and not enough municipal golf courses. And it's a quality of life issue for me. And it's also a buffer. When you build a golf course, it's a buffer that's a permanent buffer, open space in my opinion, because there are very few, for a municipal golf course, there won't be homes built around there because it's county park, so it really will add to the community, and I would support that 100%.
Mr. Kennedy?
Well, I think it's important that we go through the public hearing process before we make a decision. I want to hear what the public has to say before deciding on whether the golf course is a right use. I know that access for equestrian, hikers, bicycle, mountain bikes and so on is something that is very valuable and very important. I would certainly support those activities. On the issue of the golf course, I think I'd want to wait to hear what the public has to say about it before making a final decision. That's what public hearings are for. So, and there have been some problems with some of our other golf courses that have been approved with a understanding that there's going to be public access, but then they end up not having public access. So I think you probably may have read some of the articles in the paper, the sports section, for those of you who read the sports section, recently that talked about Cordoval and Boulder Ridge and the fact that the public really has very little access. So we need to ensure if there is going to be a public, if this truly is going to be a public golf course, that there be strong requirements that it is in fact open to the public. So, those are what my thoughts are on that.
I wanted to stop for a minute and give a reminder to people who are writing questions that the questions have to be addressed to both candidates. The question sorters tell me that they're getting a number that are addressed to one candidate or the other. And in all fairness, we have to allow both candidates to answer questions, so please address them to both. Thanks. Okay, this one goes to recycling. What will you do to get South County from dead last in recycling to the upper 25%? Mr. Kennedy, do you want to tackle that?
In Morgan Hill, Morgan Hill has exceeded the state mandated requirements to which are 50%. We're in excess of that. And we've done that through a voluntary program. It took a media effort. It took strong participation on the part of the residents. So I think the same thing needs to be done throughout the rest of South County and the unincorporated areas. I think we could probably use Morgan Hill as an example of how to do that. I'm sure there are many other communities have had successful programs. Some have been mandatory, others voluntary. And I would support a voluntary program that really pushes recycling. We used a combination of media, focusing on getting the recycling company involved, and lots of public meetings, lots of public media stuff to get it done. And it was successful, and I think that could be done in South County overall.
Mr. Gage.
Thank you. The county is responsible for all the contracts of all the different garbage companies that service South County. And when they come to us with their plan, we require them to provide recycling as one of the elements in their program. And we are progressing as we did in the cities, where we started with garbage, and then there's now recycling for wood products and waste products, et cetera, et cetera. They are providing the cans or bins to put these in. So we follow the same program basically as the cities do, and ensure that any garbage company who wants a contract to operate within the county of Santa Clara has a recycling element to it. The bare fact is, if you don't do that and you don't meet your 50% commitment, the state's going to come in and start imposing fines, which could be significant. So there is incentive. But voluntary programs don't seem to work. You have to get out there and you have to make it easy for people to recycle, or they won't do it. So we're encouraging that, and the garbage companies are following through on that, or they simply don't get the contract.
Okay, this has to do with campaign finance. What percentage of your donations are from individuals versus businesses in terms of both numbers as well as dollars? Mr. Gage.
I can't tell you right offhand. I would say it's probably split 50-50 without really going through and looking at every contribution. The majority of the contributions are individual contributions, even though they come from businesses, because a business is only allowed to give one maximum contribution per person. So it's a combination. I have to say it's 50-50.
I can't give you an exact number. I would say probably more from individual contributors in terms of number of people. In terms of dollar amount, probably more from the businesses. I do have very strong support from Morgan Hill businesses, other businesses throughout the community. My background has been I've been very successful in helping create jobs in Morgan Hill. So I would say probably a little more from businesses, but in terms of actual number of contributors, probably more individual contributors.
Okay. I'm tempted to joke about the next one, but I won't. I just
Go
drove.
ahead.
No, well, I just drove to San Martin from San Jose, so I look at this somewhat differently. The question asks, what would you do to improve commuting north to San Jose? As I say, I would write it differently, but Mr. Kennedy, do you want to tackle that one?
Well, absolutely. I've been working to get Highway 101 widened for the last over 10 years since I was first appointed to the Santa Clara County Transportation Commission in the early 90s, then to the, at that time, what was called the Congestion Management Agency. And finally, it's happening. The project is ahead of schedule. The low bidder, fortunately, the low bid for the widening of 101 came in very much below the estimate, so there's additional funds that are going to be used to speed up the project even further. It's anticipated that it will now be finished in 18 months from the original start date. And in addition to that, that's obviously widening Highway 101 is of critical importance to all of us who are commuting or driving north as well as south. But also expanded Caltrain service. I've worked many years for expanding Caltrain service as well since the Loma Prieta earthquake that created the crisis and was the real impetus for getting Caltrain service started, and expanding bus service as well. There are express buses. There are things that we can do, newer technology to speed up bus systems as well. So I would focus on all of those measures. We also need to keep, when we do that, it'll keep a lot of the commuter traffic off of our local streets. So that's a very important thing to do as well. So we get traffic on 101 and off of our local streets.
Mr. Gage.
I'm wondering what took Dennis so long. 10 years is a long time. And that's a joke since you wouldn't tell it. Actually, Measure AB, which we're in the process of administering now, was a county-initiated ballot measure where we asked the voters to support us. They did that. We have the responsibility as a county to manage the dollars and to see that these projects are done on time. They are progressing on time, on schedule. Most of them are under budget and are ahead of schedule. So we are addressing our transit needs, our road needs, and we meet all the time. We get updates at my Hewlett Committee once a month on the status of each project. People are actually, the work that's going on there is slowing the traffic down because people are amazed how they can lay 2 lanes of cement and they watch it, and so when you're going through that area, they back up till you get to the end of it and then they take off again. So we're going to see an early finish to there, probably this time next year. The 101 will be open. We just approved the bid today to do the 85-81 exchange, and the contractor has a penalty in his clause. If he doesn't finish the Highway 101 between Metcalf and where the 4 lanes open up in San Jose, it's a $10,000 fine a day. We want that opened at the same time the 101 opens so we don't go into another bottleneck. So we are managing those projects very closely. We are managing the dollars, and we will meet our commitment that we gave to the public in doing the projects that they asked for on time, on schedule, and hopefully under budget.
Okay, I'm quite sure that this question is related to the one that I just asked. There seem to be several problems with the back roads being used at excessive speeds and with vehicles that are too heavy to be on them. What would you do to correct these deficiencies? You get to continue with that.
Well, I've worked through the planning, the San Martin Planning Commission, and many times we have had, first off, I want to tell you that the CHP has the contract by law to do speed control on county roads. So if there's any radar control that's going to occur, that has to be done by the CHP by law. So our county sheriffs can't sit out there with a radar gun. If they are tracking somebody in a vehicle, yes, they can cite them. So a lot of people say, well, why aren't you doing radar? It's because there's a contract, and they are contracted to do that. We've asked many times for them to come out. The residents have complained about trucks. We've had the CHP, and I mentioned that in my opening statements, go out there and actually spot check areas. We will continue to do that, but because it's a function of the CHP, we can't always get them there when we want them. It's going to help, though, now that we have additional deputies down here in the South County, and we've done stop signs. We've looked at areas where guardrails were necessary to make it safer. I think that we'll see an improvement in that, and keeping those trucks off the county roads back on. The reason they're going there is they're trying to avoid the scales because they're doing something illegal, and we want to force them back to go through there so that they provide a safe environment.
Mr. Kennedy.
I would work to increase the traffic enforcement by the Highway Patrol, and there are ways to do that, just as we did with getting the median barrier installed on Highway 101. It took a major effort lobbying at the state level to get some focus on our problems here, working with our elected officials at the state level. So we need more Highway Patrol, California Highway Patrol enforcement to get it done. We need to, above all, ensure that there are truck routes, and the trucks are supposed to stay on those truck routes. And it's a matter of enforcement. If we're not getting the enforcement, we need to get on the backs of our elected officials at the state level and get them to give us some help to get the enforcement that is needed.
Okay. I'm trying to find a question that covers something that we haven't at least touched on already. This one perhaps would do it. As supervisor, how will you provide a public place for rural activities like the county fair, 4-H events, where people can learn about animals and their care? Mr. Kennedy?
I'm sorry, my wife just stepped out because she's a former 4-H member, and I think that we need to, if we could take the operations that are currently held at the Santa Clara County Fair, set up an agricultural facility that perhaps could be used for fair purposes or fair-like purposes for our 4-H clubs, for our youth and those of us who have animals. I think the county can help facilitate that, and perhaps it could be associated with shifting the agricultural portion of the county fair from San Jose to South County, where most of our animals now are. So that's, I think, what I would do. Work with our county fair folks and see if we could find a suitable location for such a facility.
That is, in fact, what we are doing. It's my full intention to move the fair portion, the animal part of that, down to South County, because this is where it happens. The fair is changing as it sits in Santa Clara County. We're going to have a theater there. We're trying to get more revenue developed. There'll be housing around there. There'll be a lot of things that are going on. And we want to move, and have discussed this as a board, move the animal portion of that, and as was asked in the question, the agricultural aspect down here, because that's where these things are happening and not in the city of San Jose. That'll give us, specific attention, because there won't be other activities going on. It can be used as a year-round facility, and the money that's generated from the theater that's planning on being built can actually pay for that event to occur down here. It may even occur at one of the parks or some of the land that we own. So that is our intent to do that, because this is the agricultural area to move down here.
Okay. Sorry, we've got time probably for just a couple more questions, and we're trying to decide which issues have not been covered as well. I think this is one that has not already been covered very much. To what extent should county medical facilities be made available on our elementary, junior high, and high school campuses? Mr. Gage, do you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I think that, we are very concerned about children. And, it's an issue of pay me now or pay me later. If kids don't get quality health care, when they get, well, I won't say my age because I'm old, but when they get to be 40-ish and that, they start to have major problems, which if there's no health care for them, we can't afford to do that. We are taking an active role in that, and that's one of the reasons we're opening up a clinic in Gilroy. We're also doing one in North County, and we have some in the central part of the county to supply that. We have nurses that go into the schools that work with them, work with the kids in there and try to identify problems and bring that, back to the county to solve those problems. That's why we started the Healthy Kids Initiative and used the tobacco settlement money to do that and put $3 million into that program, and we'll continue to fund it. It's very important. The schools is a place where all the kids end up going, so you have a captive audience, and that's a good place to start from, and I support that 100%.
Mr. Kennedy?
You're not that old, Don.
Well, compared to you, I know, but I didn't want to say that.
Medical services at schools, it's really critical that we tie our medical services to our schools and programs that the county can provide. The county does have responsibility for our social services, our medical services. So it's critical that we step up to the plate to ensure that our kids going to school are healthy, they're well fed, and they're in an environment where they can learn. It's important also because some of the programs that the county provides are threatened by the loss of the VLF funds, the vehicle licensing fee funds, which fund some of these programs. So it's imperative that we lobby our state legislators not to allow them to take away this critical source of funds. So I would advocate expanding nursing services at schools. It's something that it used to be very common. You'd have a nurse at every school. It's not the case today. We need to restore that, and we need to ensure that all of our kids have, when they go to school, they're healthy and they're well fed and they're in an environment where they can learn.
Okay, this is going to be the last question, and maybe it's a good one to end on because it's a reminder that all of the issues we've been talking about are really intertwined. We can keep building houses, but are we building water supplies, electricity, and waste services to support these new homes? Mr. Kennedy?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I served as chairman of SCRAW, our South County Regional Wastewater Authority. I'm very proud of the fact that we did build a wastewater treatment plant that serves the cities of Morgan Hill, Gilroy, and does have some provision for San Martin, by the way. And I would support providing some of that sewer service to the village downtown section of San Martin. I'm a strong believer in ensuring that our infrastructure is in place. And infrastructure includes streets, water systems, sewer systems, as well as schools. So, and I hate to continue to use Morgan Hill as an example, but Morgan Hill has a very stringent growth control measure that requires that no housing can be built unless the infrastructure is in place. So we need to have those same kinds of restraints on land development. Unless the infrastructure is in place, the development should not occur. But we also at the same time need to work to build the proper infrastructure, as we've done with the SCRAW wastewater treatment plant, and as we're doing to build new schools, new highways and freeways, et cetera. We need to work on building that infrastructure and providing the funds that are needed to do that.
Thank you. I want to reiterate again that the county is not in the development business. If you're talking about infrastructure, if you're talking about sewers, if you're talking about building, that should occur in the cities. Last year, The year 2001, only about 100 homes were built in the South County area, and that was based on the land requirements, whether it be 20, 40, 80, 5 acres. We're not in the development business. We should always strive to provide the best quality of water. We have a lot of water companies, but most of the people that are in the unincorporated area cannot attach to local water systems. It's against the law. They cannot attach to local sewer systems. It's against the law unless they have a failing septic tank and they are contiguous to the growth. Talking about the sewer plant, I'm proud of the sewer plant because I spent 10 years of my life on that sewer, being in charge of that sewer committee and getting that new plant built. And it was built as an expandable plant. The city of Morgan Hill and Geary, we asked the city of Hollister to be in it, and they chose not to do it, and they're going to have problems. But I think future problems are going to surface around water quality, air quality, and those kinds of things. So we have to be very careful how we plan growth. Morgan Hill is the fastest growing city in the county of Santa Clara to date. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to stop now the written questions. At this point, we're going to give each of the candidates a minute. If there was something that was said at any point in the question and answer exchange that they thought about wanting to clarify later, this is their chance, the last word on clarifying of questions, of answers to questions. I sound like Jeopardy, don't I? Don Gage, would you like to start with that?
Yeah, I just want to cover 3 points, 4 points very quickly. One, that we have had no master plan meetings in the airport. They will start next week, and they will be at all 3 airports. Secondly, there was a comment made about, well, we don't want any landings at night. If you want to get your instrument rating at an airport, you must do takeoff and landings at night. So if you restrict that from happening, you will have less qualified pilots in the air because they're not going to be able to have instrument-type landings. We talked about the hospital. The reason that we did not restrict St. Louis in any way is because we have never attached any strings to any other person, business, or company who have come to the county to do bonds. It's just like buying a house. If you meet all the requirements, you have the collateral and everything else, you get it. We were advised by our legal counsel not to attach strings to that. And the last thing I wanted to say is if you want to see a poor example of hillside development, drive south about 5 miles.
Mr. Kennedy?
Well, with respect to, just to comment on the nighttime flying, I don't mean to imply that there would be no nighttime flying, but after a certain hour, like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, so that people can sleep, not have their sleep interrupted. I know that it's important to be able to fly at night, but not all hours of the night and the wee hours of the morning. I think a lot of the problems that we've are experiencing are the result of lack of code enforcement. We need to do better at that. And I'd just like to follow up on sewer capacity for San Martin. I think I would favor personally if it would help the downtown village portion of San Martin to have sewer capacity. I would be in favor of doing that. That's a decision that is up to the SCRAW, the South County Regional Wastewater Authority Board of Directors, but I would support it.
Okay, and then to close the forum, we've given each candidate a couple of minutes to give us a formal closing statement. And in reverse order of the beginning, Dennis Kennedy will give us his closing statement.
Thank you. Well, you've had the opportunity to hear many of the issues that we're faced with. The issues of one of the most important ones that I want to talk about is what I would call the lack or the loss of local control here in your community. I believe that a better job can be done in accomplishing what you as residents of San Martin would like to see, following the recommendations of your planning committee, following the recommendations of the Santa Clara County Planning Commission, supporting those decisions, and I would do that. There are major issues that we're faced with, issues such as traffic congestion, the lack of affordable housing, a faltering economy, lack of medical services. Those are all issues that I have worked on successfully over many, many years. And I bring that experience to the Board of Supervisors, and I think it's urgent. There's an urgency about this. We cannot tolerate another 4 years of having a supervisor who does not listen and act on the wishes of those communities that he represents. And I would bring that to this election. On each of these issues, I bring the experience, the background, the knowledge to provide that leadership. So our election is on March 5th, and I would ask for your support. And it's critical that everyone come out and vote, and I would be honored to have your support. And I thank especially the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance, the League of Women Voters, for sponsoring this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Many of you want more of a voice in county government and more services down here. And I think I told you in the beginning that's exactly why I ran for the Board of Supervisors in the first place. Many folks wondered if a conservative from South County could convince colleagues to expand services. Well, I was able to win over the other four supervisors and deliver services to you. I'm pleased to say I have endorsements of all 4 of the County Board of Supervisors, and this year they elected me chair twice in 3 years. I'm also proud to have the sole endorsement of the county firefighters, the sheriff, the district attorney, the park ranger, and every employee organization in the county. I committed to work hard for you, and I'm very proud of what I've accomplished. Being accessible and responsible to you, increasing services to South County residents, opening an office in San Martin, the health insurance for kids, partnerships between law enforcement and schools, the 101 widening, we've got 4 lanes ahead of schedule, increased law enforcement and graffiti abatement, building the county reserves and saving taxpayers' money. I've enjoyed serving as your county supervisor and putting South County back on the map. It's very easy to make promises. Promises are cheap. I delivered for South County, and I intend to keep on delivering for you. And I would be honored to have your vote. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the residents here in South County. And I want to remind you that I do publish my pager. And if you call me, if you write, or if you send me an email, I will respond to you. My pager number is 408-681-4609. And thank you for attending tonight. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate all the questions that you ask and your involvement in our county.
Thank you, both of you gentlemen. I want to bring one more person to the podium. This lady has been the most remarkable person to work with that I have known in a long time. She's going to kill me. If you want an event like this organized, and if you want it done efficiently and with so much energy that you can't believe it, you just get Sylvia Hamilton to chair your committee.
She just said, I'm going to go home and clean off my email. I don't think that was directed to me. Do you? Hey, wow, I am so impressed with everybody. The attendance has been fantastic. Both candidates, I thank you so much. Would everybody please give yourselves and the candidates a nice big hand? I'm sure that everybody would like for me to talk for another 30 minutes or so, but I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can. I cannot pass this opportunity, though, to introduce you personally to the people whose names are on the back of your program. But this committee with the League of Women Voters and the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance was the most fantastic committee I've ever been on. I've got to make sure you see their faces. From the League of Women Voters, we have Virginia Holtz. If you'll stand and wave at everybody and remain standing till the committee is there. Alice Thorne, Tara Lisa Kaplow. From the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance, we have Roy Froome. Where's Roy? Somewhere. We have Mary and Greg Tomlinson, Donna Brodsky, Barry Schiller, by the way, it was Barry's idea to have this forum, and myself, Sylvia Hamilton. Let's give that committee a great hand. They're really great. Numerous people have generously given their products and their valuable time to provide this unique opportunity for our community. I would like to quickly introduce just a few of them and tell you some of the things they have done. For example, Mike and Tomiko from Mountain Green Nursery loaned us all the plants that are around the room. Ken Churchill from the Great Water Bottling Company brought us 12 cases of water bottles that have the San Martin label on them. And the San Martin Lions Club for donating this wonderful hall for this event. We really appreciate it. The news media. I could go on and tell you about the different things they've done, but the two I want to call particular attention to, the Pinnacles and the Dispatch both, not only have written full-page articles about the event, have given very, very good coverage. They also have their people here tonight, and we appreciate it very much. Let's give those people a hand, please. I also have a list of about 25 other helpers, but I was told that I better shorten this a bit. So I just want to tell you that we have runners, we have the question screening committee, we have the welcoming table, we have refreshments people, etc. This is a wonderful community. We have extra League of Women Voters people here, tons of Neighborhood Alliance members, San Martin Planning Advisory Committee members, and San Martin Lions Club members. Let's give all of them a big hand. I agree, this is my last comment. I agree with the candidates. We do remember what happened in Florida, don't we? Our vote does make a difference. Please vote on March 5th. Also, we have refreshments in the back of the room. Hopefully you'll be able to have a few minutes to informally chat with the candidates. And there are information tables in the back of the hall. So please enjoy. And if anybody wants to work at putting things away, we wouldn't argue with you there either. Thank you so much for attending.